to my first question. When do you graduate from being Richard to Rich? Like, when do you know that you can call Richard Fortus Rich?
I don't know that there's a point along the scale that where you transition from. I think it's really whatever is most comfortable for you. I answer to either.
Well, there
including
you go.
Dick. You can call me Dick if you'd like.
Well, Brett, you have a who's who of people on Kill Me to Keep Loving You. That's the first song that I heard of yours. How do you know this is the first thing that I want people to hear from Hellings?
I think when we were in the studio and it was all coming together, we just felt that it was such a big song and such a big kind of power ballady sort of thing that is missing from I think a lot of the music nowadays. You know, that kind of stuff, that kind of sound is not, you know, very prominent, and we just felt it highlighted everybody really well. It's weird to come out with a ballad because we have a lot of rock stuff that we did on the record. So, but we also thought it was really relatable, and I think people can really get into the concept, and I related with the lyrics, and I really, when it came into the studio, everybody was just like, whoa, this thing kept growing and growing and growing. I was like, you know what? I don't see a lot of my contemporaries having a song like this out there. So I think it would grab people's attention, be a good representation of what we did there. But there's so much more to come. So, and I can't wait for people to hear the rest of the stuff as well.
Rich, do you remember the first song by Brett that you heard?
Some of his older stuff I'd heard. Probably the first song. Man, that's a tough one. I don't remember.
I think it was like Little Bit of Love or something. Little Bit of Love. I think a little music video. I think we sent out to everybody.
Yeah, I did see that. But I thought I heard there were some other songs that I heard because I think I got a package of songs and listened to everything.
Now, Brett, do you remember the first time that you heard Rich's work? Because obviously the GNR credits, like first, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But how did you first learn about Rich?
Well, I've been following Rich on and off, just, you know, watching MTV or watching festivals and stuff like that, and on usually like on Access TV or VH1 or stuff like that. And I remember seeing him for the first time with Thin Lizzy, and just thinking this guy looks so cool, and he reminded me a little bit of like Ronnie Wood a little bit, and he had this like of charisma about him. He played really well, and I was just like, wow, that would be so cool, you know, someday to even, you know, maybe even meet him and let alone play with him, you know. And I was blown away by that performance, and I remember that one in particular. And then, well, you know, just seeing him throughout his career, you know, knowing that he was playing with Guns and stuff like that. Never really went to see him live, but always saw stuff like on television. And then when David said, you know, we're thinking about getting him, I was like, oh my goodness, Rich Fortus? Are you kidding me? Or Richard Fortus at the time? I was like, whoa, that is really, really cool. And for him to be wanting to do it, it was just like, you know, kind of like a fantasy kind of deal, you know, fantasy dream team kind of deal. And so that's kind of where I got involved with him. And then I'm really in the studio, really got to know who he is and what he does. And he's so much more than just a guitar player. He's a producer. He's a good songwriter, you know, brings so much to the table. So we really got lucky getting him involved.
Now, Rich, you share guitar duties with Tommy Hendriksen, and both of you are gentlemen who can do rhythm and lead. How does it work when you're coming into a project like this? Do you know outright, okay, I'm going to take the back seat, or who's leading the guitar charge?
I think Tommy and I came in on equal footing. We were friends. We've been friends for years. So, you know, I don't really think about that, you know, as far as who's going to be the lead play. You know, it's sort of like, hey, what, you know, do you have an idea for this? Or, you know, we just work it out per song, you know, and it really depends on who's got what going on, you know, for that particular song.
Got it. Brett, was all this recorded in the same studio? Because I know Billy is LA based, Rich is elsewhere, etc. Was it pieced together, or was everyone in the same place for a couple days?
Everybody was kind of in the same place. We went down to El Paso, Texas, to this place called Sonic Ranch, and we basically lived together for 2 weeks and just kind of got to know each other and got all the basic tracks down, the musical tracks. I actually ended up losing my voice down there because I was singing so much. So I ended up overdubbing my vocals, my lead vocals down in Nashville, where Billy was down there, and Buck lives there, and Tommy flew in, and we did my vocals in about like 4 or 5 days. But mostly, musically, everything kind of came together in that 2-week period down in Texas, and I think it really gives this organic feel to the record. You know, everything was done live. It was done without a click. You know, everything was old school. And
and that's, records don't get made that way anymore.
Exactly.
It was really great to be able to have that opportunity to do that, because this is the way I always used to do records. You know, it's like everyone would come together, and it's great when you're on a location like that where you're remote somewhere in the middle of nowhere, which this literally was.
Yeah, it was.
We were right by the border wall.
Remember the one time
in the middle of a pecan field.
Make it back, Rich.
It was, but it was great because you're fully immersed in the project, and you're just, all you're doing is thinking about the music, and it was great.
Is this the recording studio in El Paso that Jim Ward from Sparta owns?
I'm not sure. No, I don't think it is. No, but it is a really, really unique studio. I was like blown away by that environment. And like Rich said, it's like you can't go anywhere. There is nothing for an hour to hour and a half. So you are just locked into this zone. And so it was all music. It was all just about getting up, doing the best you could, and just being isolated. And like Rich said, it's like that's the way records really should be made. It was a really, really awesome experience to do that. Not a lot of records are made like that anymore. Right. They're always usually pieced all over the place. So it was cool just to bring everybody together, live together, tell stories. I heard so many rock and roll stories from these legends of rock. It was crazy. It was so much fun. We would have some of the times we have our wine nights, and it was just so cool to learn from them and soak it all in. And it really, again, added to the music.
Is there an album done, or most of an album done at this point?
There is. We had about 11 tracks that we did, and I did 11 tracks on vocals and everything. And we plan on kind of piecing it out throughout the year. You know, we're coming. You know, we started off with "Kill Me." And the next one we're going to be doing is probably going to be called "Fall in Love," or it's called "Fall in Love." It's a Frankie Miller cover. So we kind of went back in time and tried to find a cool song that was sort of a hit back in the day and put our own twist on it. And then each 3 months kind of releasing a different feel from the album. Some of the stuff is real rocky. Some of the stuff has kind of even got a sort of a punky kind of vibe. And then some stuff is kind of very that old school Southern rock blues swamp kind of feel. So the album's got a lot of different things. And I think after maybe like 4 or 5 singles, we might release, the full LP, which by the end of the year, something like that. That's kind of like what we're thinking of. So,
Rich, is this the most recent session that you were a part of? And I'm not begging for an exclusive or anything like that, but you are positioned in front of gear. So I'd have to assume you're one of those people who plays on a lot of records.
It's interesting because I'd say probably these days, 90% of the sessions that I do are done here at my studio, at my house. But no, it's not the most recent thing that I've done, but it was really great to be able to. I actually did one other record since then where it was on location, where you go and you live in a house and get up and record. But it's not often. Like I said, probably 9 out of 10 times I'm doing my session stuff here at my place.
Did you bring any of your gear, Rich, to El Paso? I asked it because some people love pods and other people hate pods, and they insist on trading all their gear.
Pods is like the old kidney shape line 6.
The stupid live amps that bands use. And
Oh,
I
no,
remember
no.
one time I interviewed Brian Baker from Bad Religion. They did a record with Todd Rundgren in like 2000, 2001. And Bad Religion, he told me, had freighted all their gear down. And Todd Rundgren basically went, oh, we're not using any of that. We have all this set up in the pods and these pedals, none of your gear.
And they were okay with that.
I think they had to go, this is Todd Rundgren. He knows what he's doing. Maybe they weren't okay with it.
He is Todd Rundgren, that's for sure. And and I've always wanted to work with him because he's one of my favorite artists. But no, I did not cart amps down there. I took a couple of guitars and a bunch of pedals, and I knew the amps that they had there, and they have an extensive collection of vintage amps. So I was good.
Wow. Okay. Now,
and sometimes it's nice to also have like a limited amount of finite amount of gear, at your disposal to sort of work with and get the most out of, and to be able to focus on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to everything.
Too many options.
which is sort of my house. But
well, when you go to a diner and you see that menu, a New York style diner, and you see that 25-page menu where they can make you anything you want, it is intimidating. And it sometimes can be stressful to be eating out like that.
It definitely more time consuming, isn't it?
Yeah. And Brett, you worked with Tim Palmer on this record.
We did.
Did you know all along that Tim was the guy to mix the first track that the public would hear?
I did not. We had a couple different options, and there was another guy named Mike, and that was Tommy's kind of friend. And then Tim kind of was scouted out a little bit. He was up in the discussions, and they both did kind of a mix of it. And then we all together just kind of listened as a band to which one we really liked, and we went with Tim. And it was kind of like a no-brainer because of the way that he mixes and the way that he mixed those old records like Pro Jam and worked with Plant and all those guys. He just brings out everybody's sound. It's like incredible. And when you have such great players, that are doing so much, you really want everybody to be heard. And he really, he does this thing where he can really spread it out and put me right in the middle. And it just sounds full. And it sounds, just big. And he was the guy to do it. I just knew it. And he's mixed now a couple of several of them for us now that we're going to be releasing. So he is.
So I don't know if Brett knows. I don't know if Brett knows this, but Tim came through me.
Oh,
oh, really?
Yeah, I've worked with Tim on a bunch of stuff.
I did not know that. I just love this stuff. Yeah.
I worked with Tim, and when Brett's manager was looking for ideas, I had brought up Tim because he's the best. I mean, I love working with him, and he just did the Psychedelic Furs album that I produced. He mixed it, and we just did another thing with the Mission UK.
Cool.
But yeah, I've done a bunch of stuff with Tim.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know that, Rich. I didn't know. I knew that you guys are always like texting each other or like on social media and stuff. So I'm like, wow, he must really kind of know Tim. But I'm glad that I know that now. He was a great selection. And that album 10 by Pearl Jam, I must have listened to that when I was younger. I don't know how many times, that was like my first introduction to music, that grunge movement. He's just one of those guys that just knows what he's doing, and he does it great. He's a great personality, really fun to work with. And then we got Howie Weinberg to master it, which he's the master of masters. So he did a really good job on that. So we got a really great post team, and it shows.
Yeah, Buck Johnson, who can sing higher than anybody. That
Anybody.
I think of. Kenny Aronoff.
If you can sing higher than Steven Tyler, you could sing high.
Yeah, that is an incredible thing, if I can say about that
right?
before my last question to you. I was watching this Aerosmith concert on Access TV and going, those vocals don't match Steven's mouth. Oh my, somebody is doing the higher parts. What a legend, Buck Johnson. So
hey, I've been told that Buck says if Steven doesn't want to hit it or is not hitting it, he covers it. he can do that, and that's why everybody, as Tommy Hendriksen said, everybody wants Buck in their band. You know, but Buck makes you just sound good, and the way that he trained me, even in the studio, really finding my vocal and where my comfortable range is. I could go kind of really high, but he found this little money spot and was really trying to push me more towards like the Michael Hutchence sort of kind of vibe or with that range. So then he can kind of soar above me, and then it just sounds so, you know, beautiful and big, and then they just layer, and there you go, and so you get that big sound. So it was a pleasure working with him. I learned a lot from him, and again, what a songwriter! You know, he had a good one and a couple good ones in his catalog that hadn't been touched yet, and we got a hold of them. So,
amen. Well, the last question before I let you both go. Do you have a TV recommendation, a show that the wife and I should be watching? Because every time we go, this is the show, we finish it in 3 days and we go, what's next? Two globe touring musicians who are informed, they got to know something.
It's a good question. Rich, why don't you go first? Because I want to see your response on that one.
You know, there's a great show that I don't know what you're into, but but I really enjoyed this show called The Patriot. And I don't know many people that have seen it, but it's a phenomenal show. It's hilarious, absolutely hilarious.
Great.
The Patriot. Okay, that's going on the list.
Patriot.
Off my radar.
That's a good one. And I have to say that Netflix really is killing it nowadays. There is the series, and I actually wrote a song based off how inspired I was, how heady of a trip this was. It's called Sandman. I don't know if you've seen it, but it is crazy. He's the Lord of Dreams, and it goes into all this fantasy sort of stuff. And, you know, he fights the devil. That's all kinds of crazy stuff. So if you're in for, you know, a little bit of fantasy and inspiration like that, or just, you know, want to freak yourself out a little bit, Sandman is the way to go. So
Sandman, The Patriot. I have homework to do, but more importantly, I'm looking forward to the full-length record from the band, Brett. Richard, I'm looking forward to that Psychedelic Furs album that you produced. Both of you on upwards, and looking forward to what's next.
Oh, thank you so much.
The Furs album is out now, and it's called Made of Rain.
Sweet.
The ignorance on this end of the line is just but thank you both for your time. And
thank you so much, man. I can't wait to do it again. And thanks, Rich.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Paltrocast.